The proposition the notification chimed as Damian Blackwood stepped out of the architecture firm's glass elevator. Another message from his mother, making it the 5th this week. He swiped it open with a sigh. Your cousin Olivia's save the date just arrived. It says Damian Blackwood and guest. Please tell me you'll actually bring someone this time. Damian slipped the phone back into his pocket without responding. At 36, he was the last unmarried Blackwood in 3 generations. In fact, his family never let him forget. His meteoric rise at Meridian Architecture meant 14-hour workdays designing skylines across 3 continents. Relationships weren't just on the back burner. They weren't even in the kitchen. You look like someone just rejected your design proposal. A voice called from the coffee counter of the lobby cafe. Damian looked up to see Zoe, his assistant, holding 2 cups. Worse, family wedding season approaches. The YRU's still single. Inquisition, Zoe nodded, handing him his usual black coffee. Your cousin in Greece, right? The one with the vineyard? Santorini, 2 weeks from now. He took a grateful sip. I'd rather present 2 hostile investors than face my grandmother's disappointment again. Zoe tilted her head, the morning light catching her dark curls. Have you considered renting a girlfriend? Damian nearly choked on his coffee. Excuse me? Not like that. She laughed. My roommate's friend does it sometimes. She's an artist who needs flexible income. People hire her to attend family functions, corporate event situations where being alone is somehow a crime. Damian started to dismiss the idea, then paused. His last video call with his mother had ended with her not-so-subtle hint about the family's expectation of grandchildren before my hair turns completely gray. It's practical, Zoe finished for him. No emotional entanglement, clear boundaries, and your family gets their wish. Temporary solution to a temporary problem. Later that evening, Damian found himself in a quiet corner of Lumiere, a bistro downtown, checking his watch for the 3rd time. This was absurd. He was about to hire a stranger to pretend to be in love with him, Mr. Blackwood. He looked up to find a woman with auburn hair and curious eyes standing beside his table. She wore a simple navy dress and carried a vintage camera. Bag, Valerie Porter, she extended her hand. Zoe said you might have an interesting proposition. Her handshake was firm, professional. She sat down. Damian noticed the paint smudges on her fingers. I understand this might sound unusual. He began. You'd be surprised what doesn't sound unusual to a freelance photographer in New York, Valerie smiled. Zoe mentioned something about a wedding in Santorini. 2 weeks, all expenses paid. You'd pose as my girlfriend. Valerie didn't flinch. Any specific backstory you've prepared? I thought we'd keep it simple. Met through work, dating 6 months. Studied him with an artist's eye. Why me? Surely a successful architect knows plenty of women. Damian appreciated her directness. I need someone with no connection to my professional circle. No chance of complications afterward. Ah, Valerie nodded. What would my compensation be, beyond the free trip to Santorini? When Damian named the figure, her eyebrows rose slightly. That's generous. I value privacy and professionalism, he replied. Valerie took a sip of water, considering. I have one condition, she finally said. I want permission to photograph the island, not the wedding or your family, just the landscapes. I've been working on a series about light across different horizons. Damian felt a flicker of curiosity about her work, but pushed it aside. This was a business arrangement, nothing more. Deal, he said, extending his hand again. Valerie's fingers met his.
Us.
A contract sealed in the golden light of the bistro. Well then, Damian, she smiled, her eyes bright with something unreadable. I guess we're officially fake dating. Perfect pretense, the Santorini sun painted everything in impossible gold as Valerie stepped onto the balcony of their shared villa.
Out below.
The Aegean stretched like liquid sapphire against whitewashed buildings cascading down the caldera. This is breathtaking, she whispered, raising her camera to capture the morning light dancing across the water. Damian emerged from the villa, adjusting his cuffs. My family's already at breakfast. Ready for day 1? He paused, struck by how. At home, Valerie looked against the Santorini backdrop, her auburn hair catching fire in the sunlight, her simple white sundress billowing gently in the breeze. For a moment, he forgot this was all an arrangement. Remember, he said, clearing his throat, We met when you photographed the Harrison building opening, 6 months ago. Valerie lowered her camera, her expression shifting into something warmer. More intimate, the photographer becoming the actress. 6 months, she repeated, stepping closer to adjust his collar with familiar ease. Long enough to be serious, not long enough for them to wonder why they haven't met me before. Her fingers lingered against his neck, and Damien felt his pulse quicken her. Method actor's response, nothing more. And you're smitten with me, she added with a playful smile. That part's important. I think I can manage that performance. He replied dryly. The breakfast terrace overlooked the caldera, where Damien's extended family had gathered in celebration. His mother, Eleanor, spotted them first, her face transforming from polite interest to undisguised joy when Valerie slipped her hand into Damien's. Darling, Eleanor embraced Damien before turning to Valerie. You must be the mysterious photographer who's finally captured my son's attention. Mrs. Blackwood, Valerie smiled with genuine warmth. Thank you for including me in such a special occasion. Call me Eleanor, please. Come, you must meet everyone. What followed was a masterclass in social integration. Valerie charmed Damien's stern father with thoughtful questions about his vineyard's history. She bonded with Olivia, the bride, over their shared love of visual storytelling. She even got Damien's 8-year-old grandmother, Sophia the family matriarch, who had been skeptical of every woman Damien had ever dated, to show her old family photographs from when Santorini was still a hidden gem. Your Valerie is quite something. Damien's cousin Julian commented as they watched her help his daughter make a flower crown. Never seen you look at anyone that way before. What way? Damien asked, suddenly self-conscious, like she's the view. You'd rather be studying than that famous Santorini sunset. Throughout the day, Damien found himself increasingly aware of Valerie's performance, the way she leaned into him during conversations. Her hand finding his instinctively, how she seemed to know when to rescue him from tedious relatives with, "A perfectly timed darling, didn't you promise to show me that little chapel?" By evening, as the rehearsal dinner wound down under string lights and stars, Damien was surprised by how natural it all felt. Valerie sat beside him, her fingers interlaced, with his, laughing at his uncle's outrageous stories, as if she'd been part of the family for years. They adore you, he murmured, when they had a moment alone, walking along the torchlit path back to their villa. It's not hard, she replied. They're good people who love you. They just want to see you happy. Is that your professional assessment, Valerie? Stopped, turning to face him in the moonlight. Oh, that's my personal observation. You know, for someone who designs spaces for human connection, you seem surprisingly reluctant to embrace it yourself. Damien stared at her, caught off guard by her insight. I'm just doing what we agreed, she continued, softer now, playing. The woman who sees all of you, not just the successful architect. Before he could respond, his mother called them from the terrace above. Valerie's expression shifted seamlessly back into character as she took his hand again. Coming, Eleanor, she called back with perfect affection, leaving Damien to wonder which was the act, the intimate observation, or the public performance. Slipping masks, the wedding day arrived with picture-perfect Santorini, weather skies so intensely blue they seemed painted rather than real. Valerie had disappeared at dawn with her camera, returning just in time to transform into the elegant date expected at a Blackwood family event. Damien found himself stealing glances at her. Throughout the ceremony, the way she discreetly wiped a tear when Olivia exchanged vows. How she seemed genuinely moved by the ancient Greek traditions woven into the modern ceremony. You're staring, she whispered, her eyes still on the couple. I'm maintaining our cover, he replied, though they both knew it wasn't entirely true. The reception unfolded at the family vineyard. Stone walls adorned with fairy lights and bougainvillea. As golden hour approached, Damien noticed Valerie's gaze repeatedly drifting toward the cliffs where the sun would soon set. Go, he said, surprising himself. Take your photographs. I'll cover for you. Her eyes widened. But your grandmother was just saying how she wanted to speak with us about. Some things are more important than my family's interrogation, he interrupted. The light won't wait. Gratitude flashed across her face, real, not performed before. She slipped away, camera in hand. Damien watched her go, feeling strangely proud of enabling her real passion amid their shared fiction. Later, after obligatory dances and cake cutting, Damien escaped the celebration to find her. He followed a narrow path leading away from the vineyard, toward a secluded overlook. There she stood, silhouetted against the indigo twilight. Camera lowered as if the beauty before her had finally overwhelmed even her desire to capture it. "Did you get what you needed?" he asked, approaching slowly. Valerie turned, her expression open in a way he hadn't seen before. "I think so. Come see." She showed him the camera's display images of light refracting through crystal glasses at the reception. Ancient volcanic stone glowing gold at sunset. The perfect moment when his family had gathered, laughing, unaware of being observed. "You have a gift," he said honestly. "These are extraordinary. Thank you for understanding why I needed to step away." She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Most people don't get that urgency when the light is exactly right." "I do," Damien replied. "It's like that moment in architecture when the design finally resolves itself. Everything aligns." They fell silent, standing closer than necessary now that no one was watching. The pretense should have fallen away outside family view, but something else had taken its place, something neither had scripted. "Dance with me," Valerie said suddenly. "No audience, no performance. Just because the music's beautiful." The distant strains of the wedding band carried on the night breeze. Without overthinking, Damien took her hand, drawing her into a slow dance beneath the stars. "This wasn't in our agreement," he murmured against her hair. "Consider it method acting," she replied. But her voice lacked its usual confidence. As they swayed together, Damien realized with startling clarity that he couldn't remember which gestures were for show, any more which touches were calculated, and which were genuine. His hand at the small of her back felt right in a way that transcended their arrangement. "Valerie," he began, uncertain what he even wanted to say. She looked up, moonlight illuminating questions in her eyes that mirrored his own. For one suspended moment, reality and fiction blurred completely. Then his phone rang his mother. Wondering where they'd disappeared to, the spell broke. Valerie stepped back, professional mask sliding back into place so seamlessly he almost questioned whether it had ever slipped. "We should get back," she said practically. "They'll be cutting the second cake soon." As they returned to the celebration, Damien felt the strange sensation of missing someone who was walking right beside him, the Valerie who existed beyond their carefully constructed narrative. Reality check. The New York skyline welcomed Damien back with its familiar, impersonal grandeur. 3 days since returning from Santorini, and the city felt both comfortingly routine and strangely empty. He stood before the glass wall of his corner office, watching rain streak the windows. The Harrison Building proposal waited on his desk, demanding attention. He couldn't seem to focus. Instead, his mind drifted to sunlight on white stone, the scent of bougainvillea and auburn hair lifted by Aegean breezes. "The Tokyo clients called again," Zoe said, appearing at his door. "And your mother sent flowers unusual for her." Damien turned to see an extravagant arrangement on his conference table. "She's thanking me for finally bringing someone special home," he explained, the irony bitter on his tongue. Zoe studied him with uncomfortable perception. So the arrangement worked perfectly, flawlessly. He returned to the safety of his desk. The family was charmed. No one suspected anything, and I'm officially off the matrimonial watch list, temporarily at least. And Valerie? Was she professional? Damien's fingers tightened imperceptibly around his pen. Entirely. She earned every penny, which was precisely the problem. The check he'd written at the airport felt suddenly transactional, in the worst way, reducing whatever had happened between them to a business exchange. "Good," Zoe nodded, though she hasn't cashed it yet. "She asked for your private email, by the way, something about sending you photos from the trip." Crosstown, in a small Bushwick studio apartment, Valerie sat cross-legged on her floor, surrounded by prints, golden light on ancient stones, white buildings against impossible blue, crystal glasses refracting sunset, and one photograph she couldn't bring herself to include in the portfolio she was preparing. Damien, unaware of being observed, watching the sunset with an expression of such unguarded wonder, it made her chest ache to look at it now. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, sliding the photo under a stack of others. Her roommate Tasha appeared in the doorway with coffee, still sorting the fake boyfriend vacation pics. Their landscapes Valerie corrected automatically. My Horizon series. Hung, Tasha smirked. That explains why you've been staring at the same photos for 3 days instead of actually sending them to the guy. Valerie accepted the coffee with a glare. I'm being thorough. You're being avoidant. Did something happen in Greece? Something not in the job description? Of course not, Valerie said too quickly. It was all performance. That's what he paid for. The uncashed check sat in her drawer like an accusation. Each time she considered depositing it, something stopped her, as if accepting payment would. Finalize whatever had happened in Santorini. It's merely transact. Her phone chimed with a message from an architectural magazine editor, confirming her assignment to photograph the opening of a new museum. Next week, work. Reality. The things she'd been avoiding by living in these Santorini photographs. With sudden determination, Valerie selected 12 perfect images, all landscapes. None containing Damien, and composed a brief, professional email. Her finger hovered over the send button for 3 long breaths before she finally pressed it. Done. A clean conclusion to their arrangement, except the museum she was scheduled to photograph next week had been designed by Meridian Architecture. By Damien himself? Across the city, 2 people returned to their separate realities, wondering which had been the true illusion, the relationship they'd performed so convincingly, the distance they now maintained so carefully. Truth in fiction, the museum opening buzzed with New York's cultural elite critics. Artists, patrons, circling beneath soaring ceilings that seemed to capture light and transform it. Damien stood near the central atrium, fielding congratulations. With practiced ease, while his eyes continuously scanned the crowd, he'd received her email 12. Perfect. Impersonal photographs. No message beyond thank you for the opportunity to capture Santorini's light.
Ow.
No mention of moonlit dances or unguarded moments. Just the professional exchange they'd agreed upon, then he'd seen her name on the event photographer list. Mr. Blackwood, the lighting sequence demonstration begins in 5 minutes, an assistant reminded him. Thank you, I'll be right there. He spotted her, then camera raised, moving through the crowd with practiced invisibility. The photographer, not the girlfriend. No one here knew they were connected. No one would find it strange if they barely acknowledged each other. The sensible approach would be exactly that, professional distance. Clean. Uncomplicated. Instead, Damien found himself moving toward her, drawn by something stronger than sense. Valerie lowered her camera just as he approached, surprise flickering across her features before professional composure returned. Mr. Blackwood, she nodded. Congratulations on the museum. The light dynamics are extraordinary. You received my invitation then, she blinked. Invitation? To photograph the opening? I recommended you specifically. Understanding dawned in her eyes. I see. Very generous of you. Not generosity, he corrected. I wanted someone who truly understands light to document this space. The unspoken hung between them. She understood more than just light. She understood him somehow, even through layers of pretense. I should continue working, she said, gesturing vaguely with her camera. Have dinner with me, Damien said abruptly. After this, no audience, no pretending. Valerie's professional mask slipped, revealing uncertainty beneath. Why? It was the question he'd been asking himself for weeks. Why couldn't he simply file away their time together as a successful business arrangement? Why did the 12 perfect, impersonal photographs feel like a loss, rather than the clean conclusion they'd agreed upon? Because I don't know which parts were real, he admitted. And I need to find out. Hours later, they sat across from each other in a quiet corner of a downtown restaurant. The easy familiarity of Santorini, initially replaced by awkward pauses and careful distances. I never cashed your check, Valerie finally said, breaking a silence. Why not? It felt wrong somehow, like putting a price on something that became. She trailed off. Became what? Damien pressed. Complicated. She met his eyes directly. In Santorini, there were moments when I forgot we were pretending that terrified me. I know exactly what you mean, he replied, relief and something else warming his voice. I've built my career creating spaces for other people's lives while keeping a careful distance from genuine connection in my own. It's easier to design emotional spaces than inhabit them, she suggested gently. Until recently, yes. He reached across the table, his fingers stopping just short of hers. The irony. Is that the most honest I've felt with anyone in years was during a relationship built on fiction? Valerie's hand moved the final inch, her fingers brushing his. Maybe we needed the fiction to find the truth. Where does that leave us now? No audience? No script? She smiled, not the polished smile she'd worn for his family, but something more hesitant and infinitely more real, which we could try something radical and just be ourselves. I'm not entirely sure I remember how to do that, Damien admitted. Then we'll figure it out together, Valerie replied. No pretending, no performance. Just two people who met under unusual circumstances, discovering what's real. As they left the restaurant, walking side by side through the autumn night, Damien felt lighter than he had in years. There were no guarantees, no certainty about where this unscripted relationship might lead. But for the first time, he wasn't designing around his fears or constructing facades to meet expectations. This was foundation work, messy, challenging, and absolutely essential for anything authentic to build upon. I have a confession, Valerie said as they paused beneath the glow of a street lamp. There was a 13th photograph I didn't send you. From her bag, she pulled a small print Damien on the Santorini cliffs at sunset. Unaware of being observed, his expression open with wonder and possibility. This is how you looked when you thought no one was watching, she said softly. This is the man I want to know better. Damien took the photograph, seeing himself through her eyes, not the successful architect or the dutiful son, but simply a man standing at the edge of something beautiful, ready to step forward. No more pretending, he agreed, taking her hand. As they continued walking, two people finally writing their own story, messy, unscripted, and entirely real.